maiden edition of Akoma podcast. My name is Dr. Bertha Sewa-Ayi. I'm a medical doctor and the founder and curator of Akoma Morning Reflections. This is a byproduct of Akoma Readers, Akoma Perspectives, Akoma Wisdom, and Akoma Living, a series of writings aimed at helping us all live better lives and also encouraging early education and reading for children with the Akoma 90, where children can read at home either English, Ga, or their local language in 90 days. Today, I have a special guest with me. Out of the Akoma Morning Reflections, we've been focusing on individuals who are doing amazing, remarkable things in the community. And this week we featured Dr. Rosemond Aboagye, and she's here with us. She's a Chief Executive Officer of a radiology facility, and I'm so excited because she's the only one that we've had to do 4 series on daily basis for 4 days in a row because her story is just remarkable. So I thought, well, why don't we interview her? So she's here today. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Rosemond Aboagye.
Thank you so much. The pleasure is all mine. Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. I'm so delighted to meet you.
Same
so
here.
It's interesting that we know one person in common. We won't mention her name, but it's a family member of yours, an aunt who several years ago mentioned me to you and you to me.
That's right.
And somehow we didn't connect till we started working on Akoma Morning Reflections. And it's been a joy meeting you, profiling your story over the next 4 days. So I think the audience is in for a treat.
Well, I hope so. I certainly hope so.
Okay. So I walked into your facility and I thought, oh my God, this woman is running an empire. I mean, you have this huge facility, and I don't want to bore the audience. So tell us about RAND, why it's called RAND. Give us the full name and tell us what you do here.
Thank you very much. So RAND is an acronym for my full name, Rosemond Aboagye Nadede. Over the years, I've changed my name a few times, and so now that the Aboagye is on the back burner, I replaced that with Ira. So RAND still stands for my acronym. But in the medical and radiological circles, RAND Medical Imaging and Health Systems is a diagnostic center which was built on purpose, and we live and exist to bring radiological and medical services to the underserved communities. And so RAND is not just a business, but it is a business with a passion and a heartbeat.
Wow. Yes. A business with a passion and a heartbeat. I can feel that. I mean, not many individuals would like to set up a private practice in Kaswa and you have a branch in Winneba.
Yes.
So you really must have felt like you really want to service the people in these areas. So thank you for doing that. We wish there was more of you. So tell us, apart from a few physicians who have trained outside of the country, one of whom I mentioned who helped train you, Dr. Gazy, who is also a pediatric radiologist, you are the first pediatric radiologist Ghana has trained and, come back to work in this country. So tell us, these terms are big. Who is a radiologist and who is a pediatric radiologist?
Well, thank you very much. So a radiologist is a doctor who has specialized in medical diagnosis using different modalities. So we want to know what's happening in the body. We use x-rays, we use scans, different kinds of scans, and we interpret the scans to tell your doctor, okay, she has appendicitis, or the pregnancy is twin pregnancy, or there's something wrong with the baby in the womb. And so we are the eyes of the other doctors. We see inside the body and tell them what is happening, tell them where to go look and what they are likely to find. And then for pediatric radiology, it means that I have specialized in imaging children and making diagnosis of children's diseases and conditions using radiology. And how I got into pediatric radiology is a story for another day. But I think that it was not chance, it was something that God had planned. And after I finished my training in Canada, a lot of people expected that I would stay, and everybody kept asking me, why have we come back? But Ghana is home, and I love Ghana.
I love it.
Yeah,
Oh, that's amazing.
yeah.
That's amazing. So, like, I'm an infectious disease specialist. There is no way I can do what I do without the help of a radiologist because I need X-ray. So, in other words, just to let the viewers understand, a radiologist, when you go see a doctor, the doctor is asking questions, examining you. The radiologist is the one who looks inside your body,
Yes.
either with X-rays, ultrasound looking at your heart, or more recent modalities like the CT scan
scans,
that takes
MRIs.
pictures of your sections of your body,
Yes.
MRIs,
PET scans,
PET
fluoroscopy.
scans, fluoroscopy. Oh, so you must be super smart. I mean, I'm looking at one brilliant young lady
We all are.
to be able to finish medical school, become a radiologist, pediatric radiology, and all that. So tell us about RAND. How many patients do you see here every day? Do you feel you fulfilled that mission of providing service to the underserved? Where is your catchment base? Where are your patients coming from? How many do you see every day? And tell us about Winneba and also here.
Thank you very much. In order to answer that question very well, I think I should start from why I started RAND here in Kaswa. So many years back, when I was just about rounding up my specialist training, I was working in and around Kolebu because there are a lot of private facilities there. And I noticed that a lot of people were coming from this side of town to do basic scans and x-rays all the way in Kolebu. And what really broke my heart was the fact that some of these patients, most of them actually were in pain, they were not well, and I knew how the journey from Kaswa to Kolebu was like because I had bought a land here to build, so I had been here a few times, and I just couldn't live with the fact that these patients in pain had to come all the way to Kolebu for simple radiological services. So the dream to start RAND in Kaswa was born out of that need for the people here. And that was what brought me. In fact, when I was coming to Kaswa, a lot of people critiqued me and they were like, Accra is so big. Why are you leaving Accra to come to Kaswa? But I had seen a need and I wanted to fill that need. I wanted to bring that service closer to the people here so that they didn't have to suffer that much. And that was what brought me here. And over the years, this is our 7th year running, and
Wow.
I have been so blessed having the privilege to serve the people of Kaswa. Now we have other people joining me, but I'm just so happy that I brought the light here and there are more people to help me. And in the same light, you know, when we came, our catchment area is quite wide. We do Kaswa, Swedru, Winneba, parts of Wajas. We even get patients from Accra coming in. And I realized that although we are here in Kaswa, we get quite a number of patients from Winneba as well. And the same story, bad roads, some of them are actually the pregnant women. It really touches my heart to see them suffer so much. And so I was like, why not set up a place closer to Winneba so that these people don't have to go through what they go through. And that was the reason for setting up at Winneba. We have another branch near the Mother and Child Hospital. The same way we get pregnant women come all the way. And I was like, it's not so far, but for some people, leaving the money to pay for that dropping from the hospital to this place is a challenge. And so if we can have an annex close to the hospital so that they wouldn't have to come all the way here. And so RAND and our branches and the way we have operated is always born out of our need to serve and to make the lives of our patients better. And I think that that has been our heartbeat, and that is the soul of the business. We do see quite a number of patients. The numbers fluctuate, depends on the time of year and so many other factors, but we do see enough for us to go to bed every day grateful to God that we are making a difference in the lives of people.
Very good. And what is the most common tests that physicians will order?
Well, commonly, all our modalities, we get quite a number of cases. We do quite a lot of labs. We do X-rays, we do ultrasound scans, and then we do CTs as well. A few times we get echoes, ECGs. I always say that, hey, there are a lot of broken hearts in Kaswa because we do quite a few ECGs.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about MRI? Do you do MRIs here?
And not yet,
Not
but
yet.
hopefully
Okay.
in the
Okay.
not too distant
Okay.
future.
And where is the Mother and Child Hospital? This hospital you were referring to?
So Mother and Child Hospital is about 5 or 6 kilometers from here.
Okay.
But the way the road is, it's quite a bit cumbersome to get there. It's one of our biggest referral points here in Kaswa.
Okay.
They do see a lot of cases, and they are one of our strongest partners. Yeah.
And I assume that the women are coming to do obstetric ultrasounds to check on
A
their
lot,
babies.
a lot.
Okay.
We do a lot of obstetric scans for not just Mother and Child Hospital, but most of the hospitals in Kaswa. And we also do get quite a lot of walk-in patients.
Well, people who just want to come and get one test or
Yes,
another.
yes. So when they come, we normally would review, talk to them. If it's something that has to do with radiation, we need to justify that indeed they need to have that kind of test done. And we always take the pleasure to explain to them what is happening to them, what they need to do about it, and refer them to see the appropriate doctors or specialists when the need arises.
Okay.
And so we are quite friendly, and yeah.
Yeah, and I could see that when the minute I walked in, your staff came, and I think you've trained them well. But you know, this probably didn't start easy. You and I had lunch or dinner a few days ago, and we
Yeah.
talked about your journey. Very, very impressive. Tell us about how you started with one portable ultrasound machine, which you said you bought on high purchase. You paid
Yeah.
half of it and paid the rest of over a year.
That's right.
And then the one room, and then the building, and now three and branches, and possibly going all through Africa and global, you know.
Amen.
So tell us, because I can see.
Yeah, so when I was a resident training in Kolebu,
Which year was this?
So this was 2012 to 2016.
Okay.
There was a peculiar problem in my department. So we used to scan inpatients as well as outpatients. And for quite a number of the inpatients, sometimes they were a bit too ill to be moved to the radiology department. And so many times I would hear the doctors and nurses ask us, is it possible to come and do the scan on the ward because this patient is too ill or it's on oxygen or one reason or the other? And the department did not have the means to provide mobile ultrasound. And so I was like, I think that these people need to have a solution. And so I made a plan to buy a portable ultrasound machine. When I made the plan, I had no idea ultrasound machines were so expensive. When I was told the
How
price,
much was the first
at
one?
the time, the first one I bought costed me $17,500 US.
17,500. That's a lot of
Yes,
money.
and this is 2015 or 14.
2014.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And so when I was told the price, I'm like, no, there's no way I can afford this. But luckily for me, I was introduced to somebody who was willing to sell it to me on high purchase. I would pay half and then pay the other half over a year. And so I doubled up my locum efforts to save up to buy the first machine. And once I got it, I got this nice suitcase. I packed everything into it. And I started telling the doctors and the nurses that I have a mobile ultrasound machine. So if you have a patient who cannot move, call me. I would come to the ward. So that is how RAND actually started. I started by wanting to meet a need. And so I would wheel my suitcase through the surgical wards and especially to Kolebu Polyclinic. I did a lot of scans for them. And that is how I did for about a year. And then it was time for me to leave for Canada. And at the time, I wanted to start RAND, but I was very worried about management of the machine and the business. So I made the decision to put the business on hold, go for further training, and come back and start all over. And so at that point, I packed the machine and then I went to study. I got back, and then, like I said, I wanted to start in Kaswa because I felt the people of Kaswa needed this more. So I rented my first shop. It was a struggle to pay for it, but I got somebody who was kind enough to allow me to pay in bits. And it was a small room, smaller than this room actually.
Wow.
And I
talk about small beginnings.
Yes,
right?
Small beginnings. Every day I pass by it, I look at it and I remember, and I thank God for how far we have come. And so I couldn't even afford to pay the rent that was asked. But they were kind, they gave me a plan to pay it over, I think, 6 months or so. And when I started Rand, I partitioned that small shop into two. There was a reception and then the scan room. It was pretty small, and I had two workers. So there were days when I was the only one working. I was the receptionist, I was the person scanning. And so if I had a patient, I would lock the front door because there would be nobody at the reception when I'm scanning inside. Yes, but even in those days when it was a really small business, I had this in mind, and it has reinforced for me the power of the mind and of imagination.
Vision.
Yes, vision is so important, and not the physical eyes, but what you see in your mind's eye. Because I remember telling the gentleman who rented the first shop out to me, I told him that in 2 years I don't want to be here. And so Kaswa very well, help me find a house to buy. Within 2 years, I should move to my own facility. And I hadn't even paid my rent. So can you imagine?
You had the faith.
Yes, but I had the faith. And some way, somehow, within the 2 years, we had bought this place and moved here and expanded. And I want to tell anybody and everybody out there, it does not matter the size of your dream. If you can see it in your mind's eye, it will happen. Everything I have in my life today, I saw it years ago in my mind, and I went to work towards it, and I prayed and I held on to God's promises. And today it's a reality.
It's a reality. That's amazing. And we'll talk about your faith at some point, but you know how the Bible talks about your young men shall see visions and your old men shall dream dreams. Whenever you get a vision, something that it impresses upon you that you should do it, you think about it all the time. It's a small idea. It's God who is really implanting something in you. And I've noticed that sometimes when God gives you a vision, He's probably given it to about 5 other people. He's just waiting to see who's going to implement it. And I've often talked about the fact that your vision is like a seed. If you plant it, like the way you put a seed in the ground and you don't determine that it's going to get roots and leaves. Yours is just to do the planting. The minute you plant it into the ground, God just allows the forces that be, once you, of course, you water it and all, the forces that be to just allow it to grow, because you have grown beyond your own imagination. Look how huge this place is. Congratulations. I'm really, really proud of you.
Thank you.
So talking about vision, somebody would just think, oh, this is Dr. Rosemond Aboagye. She's the CEO of this huge place. She's made it. But they don't know the struggle that you've been through. You told me you were the first of 5 children.
Yes. Of
your mother's 5 children. Unfortunately, she passed away in 2014.
That's right.
All my condolences.
Thank you.
Good memory. And your father had 10 other children. So your mother had to find a way of taking care of you. So tell us about growing up as the oldest of 5 children with a mother who was struggling to make ends meet, the whole Kenkey story, how you were selling Kenkey inside the medical school, selling Kenkey, going back to lectures, eating some, and tell us about all that, what it took. And by the way, we have something in common. As we talked, we realized we lived in Latabia together.
Yes, we did.
We went to St.
Anthony's
School together.
Yeah.
And we went to the same
University
medical
of Ghana
school,
Medical School.
I finished in 96 and you finished in 2008.
Yes.
So about 12 years.
I give it to you, Sister Penny.
Anyway, so tell us about the struggle. So people kind of, there's somebody probably out there who's in that phase and just cannot even begin to see everything the Holy Spirit is showing to them that can be done with their lives.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know how I got this kind of determination and will, but when I started selling Kenkey on the streets of Polygon, I was just about 7 years old.
7 years old.
Yes, I was that young, and it was not easy. I was exposed to a lot of dangers. It was difficult. But even as young as I was then, I had this very strong desire to make something out of my life. I don't know why I wanted to be a doctor, but I wanted to be a doctor so bad. And I knew that to get there, I needed to fight harder, do extra. And so, although I was not like a lot of my mates, when they go home, they just get to be a kid, have fun, probably read their books. My life was different. I go home, and because I was the oldest of 5 children in a family where my mom was struggling to literally raise us by herself, most of her extra responsibilities were automatically shifted to me. And I think it happens a lot in society, even for my mom. She had to forfeit her dreams as a first girl to help her own mother to sell Kenkey so that the others could go to school. And it does happen in our society where we sacrifice the first girls, especially. And so for me, in my family, it was going to be something similar, except that that will I had to succeed and to be what I had told God I wanted to be was so strong, and the grace of God helped me in the sense that I did so well in my academics, and I'll come home and it's just by the grace of God. And so I'll do well in school, I'll come home, and I'll also do well in selling and helping my mom. And so it was difficult to dissuade me from going to school. I'm sure probably if I wasn't doing too well at some point, I would just have stayed back and become a professional Kenkey seller. Indeed, at a point in secondary school, second term, my dad told me that, look, I don't have money for you to continue school. So just stay home and help your mom to sell Kenkey. And I think that was one of the saddest days in my life.
Oh.
It was, and we had a whole funeral, myself, my mom, my aunties, and after yes. And I knew I was my mother's daughter, but I knew I was not my mom. And so I said, well, I've heard you don't have money, but when we are a doctor, no, me a doctor. And so I told my dad and my parent, my mom, I'm going to go to school with or without money. And so after I had cried, I cleaned my face, I picked my bag. The only money I had then was contributions from church members. It was a Sunday, and I'd gone to church. I used to sing in the choir. So when you are going to
Which church was this?
Then it was called Bethel Faith Missions.
Bethel Faith.
Yeah, one of these charismatic churches. So people had given me money. So I took the money I'd been given in church, and I took out just enough to be able to pay for my bus fare from Kaneshi to Agri Memorial. And I gave the rest of the money to my mom that used this to take care of the younger ones. And when I got to Agri Memorial, I alighted and I walked from Agri to Ghana National. There was nothing in my chop box, no money in my pocket. This was second term of my first year in senior high school. And that same term was when they sacked me to go home for fees.
So you made that trip?
And I made that trip to Konongo through Kumasi and got...
That's what, a 13 to 15-year-old?
I think I was about 13 years. And that was the first time I was taking a trip to Konongo through Cape Coast. I had been to Konongo once from Accra. And so it was a very different route for me. And I nearly got lost. So I had to keep my eyes open so that they didn't pass my father's junction. Yeah, but those were one of the most trying times because when I got to my dad, he was like, I don't have money. When you were going, I told you I didn't have money. And you still went. Now you have come. I don't have money for you. And it was so bad that at the time, he said, even food to eat, I don't have. So I have some seed yams here. So every day you can have a bit of seed yams. So for like 5 days, I'd wake up every day, I would cook seed yams with salt, and I would eat it. And on the fifth day, miraculously, my mom showed up
In
in
Konongo.
Konongo. She
Okay.
showed up in Konongo because I was sacked home for feast on a Friday, and I was like, I can't go back to my mom in Accra.
She doesn't have.
She probably doesn't have what to eat. So if I go to her, what am I going to say? So I decided to go to my dad, but not knowing that she had also decided that when I was going to school that term, I didn't have anything. So she had gathered a few things and given it to one of my uncles to come visit me that weekend. Okay. And he got to school and was told that, oh, she was sacked home for peace. And it took my uncle a really long time to go back home to tell my mom that when I went, she was not in school because he didn't have any idea where I was. And he knew my mom was going to be really disturbed. But eventually he had to tell her. And my mom went into panic mode. And that was when she went around to borrow money and decided to come. Those days, telephones were not like it is now. Yeah. So she just took a chance. Let me go to Konongo, see if she's there. And she came and I was there. And that was how I was able to come back to Ghana National for my second term. But as God would have it, just at that time when hope was almost all gone, 2 scholarships showed up on the horizon. Wow. And I even had the luxury to choose the one I preferred. So I got a government scholarship, and then I got a scholarship from ICGC, then called Central Aid.
International Central Gospel Church.
Yes. And so God they came, Dr. Otterville and the entire ICGC community. So they came to my aid, and for the rest of the 2.5 years in senior high school, I did not have to worry about fees again. Wow. And that was how I went through senior high school.
So we'll talk about university and also the challenges you face. But I want to go back to your childhood. 7-year-old Nadede Hammond, what was it like in your day-to-day? Did you have to go and buy corn? Were you the one making the aflata? Were you the one who was going to take in the corn to Nika Nika, all those? Just tell us, what was your day like in the 7-year-old Nadede's life?
It was all you have described and more. And so typically in the mornings, I would run a few errands. Sometimes I'd have to go and mill corn. There are times you'd have to go and bring the corn from the market. There were times I'd have to go and buy firewood. There were times I had to do a flatter or wash the things from the sales the night before. You know, Kenkey, you put it in pan and rubber, so you wash them before you go to school. And when I came back from school, I would come and continue from where my mom had left off. Maybe I'll grind the pepper, I would arrange the things to take to the roadside. I did everything.
You were making the
I was making the Kenkey. So when it's vacation or when I'm weekends, when I'm home, I could, even now I can make Kenkey. Yes, I can make it. It's a skill that I have put down for a rainy day.
Yeah. In fact, not a rainy day. I mean, I'm thinking if your father had stopped you, because the entrepreneurship is inside. I mean, for all you know, you'd have been the biggest Kenkey producing woman
in Accra, Ghana here.
Was your mother one of those who was making like 200 balls of Kenkey a day, like 2 bags of?
My mom's business was not so big, just enough to feed us, but it was enough work for me to keep me really busy. And I had very little time to study my books. I honestly don't know how I passed so well,
because you're
but
smart.
I did. Yes,
you're smart. I did. You know, you and I talked about Kenkey production on a big basis, and with this experience of making Kenkey from the age of 7. If you start a Kenkey production business, it would just go through the roof because you'd have the skill, the knowledge, the capital. You'll just do it in your sleep, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about the trip from Kolegono, those 6 miles or something, walking through Kolebu to St. Anthony's Preparatory. What did you tell yourself as you walked to St. Anthony's?
Yes, so
as a Kenkey seller's
daughter. So we lived in Kolegono and we used to go to school at Latabiokoshi. And you know, we were so underprivileged that picking a car was out of the question. So every morning We would walk from Koligono to Latebiokoshi. And I was the older of at that time we were three. So I had two younger brothers. So I would hold one on the right, one on the left. My mom would help us cross the main street, the main Kolebu street to the other side. And we would walk through the Kolebu quarters all the way to Kolebu Junction and then cross over to St. Anthony's. And fortunately for me, I would say fortunately, the route we used to take, the medical school bus that would bring the students from Legon to campus, would always ply that route. And every morning we went past the medical school buses. Those days there were these green, very long green buses with white writings on them. And anytime I passed by those buses, I would say in my heart that one day I'm going to sit in this bus. Every day I said that to myself.
My goodness. And little did you know that not only are you going to sit in those buses, you're going to graduate, work in Kolebu Teaching Hospital, become a radiologist, pediatric radiologist, and own this huge facility. So we're telling young girls and young boys watching that dream big. Yes. Everything you dream, you can be. Yes. You trust God, a little bit of determination, the sky is the limit.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
I also went to St. Anthony's, but fortunately, I lived right across. So I pretty much
had to cross
I just had to cross the road to school. I didn't have to do your long walk, but I think talking with you brought memories. Of the bus to Odoko. And yes. You know, a lot of people would identify with your story. In my medical career, I've met so many people. The minute I mention, like I know a rheumatologist who says, "Oh, I used to live near Bishop Bowers." I won't mention names because we're on screen. Yeah. I'll meet this family practice and, "Oh, I live near Kolebu Junction." So I think that cohort of schools, St. Anthony's, Elta, Bishop Bowers.
Yeah, Elta.
Yeah, Elta and
you know, it makes the story believable because people can relate to it. I mentioned Koligono, I mentioned St. Anthony's, Anti-CC, all those areas.
Mapobi, Methodist.
Yes, that cluster of schools. Yeah.
Salvation Army Park. Yes, so I think a lot of people relate
and for me, those who lived around Koligono, I used to sell my Kenkey right next to a very popular Wache joint called Barcelona. I think it's still there, like Wache cocaine. Yeah, so.
Oh my goodness. All right. So you made it to St. Anthony's. You're this brilliant girl. You make it to JSS at Todoko, and then you get into Ghana National, and things were still tough.
Yeah.
So we thank God for churches like International Central Gospel Church. Sometimes they don't know the impact they're making, but because of them, you went thrown, you were thrown out of school, but you managed to finish secondary school, yes. Ghana National. And then you made it to University of Ghana. Tell us, that also wasn't simple. You told me how you could not find a place to live. It's like, is this girl going to get a break or what? You couldn't find a place to live. There were times when you had to sleep in the dining hall, pack your things, go and study, and come back until one day some leg infection finally got somebody to pay attention and say, "You know what? I'm going to give you a room." Tell us about that, because that's like part of the struggle, struggle to get to where you are. But somebody will look at you, look at this beautiful, wealthy, smart doctor. She probably got it easy. They don't know what you're
doing. Yeah, they have no idea. So luckily for me, when I got admission to Legon, I have this uncle, amazing man in the US, my mom's brother. And he was like, "You've done well for yourself, so I'm going to pay for your school fees." But going to university goes beyond school fees. There's fees for accommodation, there's books, there's feeding. Mm-hmm. I'm a young woman, I need to take, the list goes on. And so it was really relieving to have somebody to pay the fees, but then I was left with the burden of taking care of all the other things. And there was a very bad accommodation crisis around the time when I went to the university. Most people always.
Budum Brown.
Yes. Oh, that's right.
It was my time that we had to go to Budum Brown.
Okay.
And Saba Annex and all that.
Great. So for us, at that time there were a lot of private hostels that people
Let's
paid
bring it
for
up.
and yes, and lived in. But for me, that was not an option. I mean, where are you going to get the money to pay for that from? And so at one point, I was moving from our family house in Latabiokoshi to Legon every morning.
That's serious.
And
Latabiokoshi through
to
Adenta and stuff
all the way to Legon, yes.
Oh my
And I did
goodness.
that every morning. And the money I was given was barely enough to cover for the transport. And so I was hungry all the time. All the time. I did it for like a week, and I'm like, no, I can't live this way. And so in the second week, anytime I didn't have lecture, I had a free period. I arranged all the female hostels in a line. I had it in a book, and I would go from one door to the other, and I would knock on every single door. And when they opened, my story was always one. Please, I need a place to
perch.
And several days after I'd done that, I came to a door. And when they opened, they were like, oh, we have a medical student who is going on vacation. So you can have a bed while she's on vacation. And unfortunately for me, the vacation lasted for less than 3 weeks.
Oh my goodness.
Then she came back and had to leave the room. But I told them that, you know what? Can I leave my things in the room? I will not sleep here, but every morning I would come and shower, change my clothes, and go to lectures. And they were like, fine. And so my things were in Legon Hall, that room, and after lectures I would bath, then I would go to Saba dining hall, I would study, do group discussion with my friends. Then when we are done, everybody would go to their room, and I would stay and read until my eyes could not keep open. Then I'll place my head on the table and I'll sleep. Oh my goodness. Yes, and so for quite a long time I slept in the Sabbath dining hall.
And those days when that happened, what were you thinking? What would you be thinking? What's going through your mind?
The only thing going through my mind was the fact that I need to get to medical school. And no matter what it takes, I'm going to get to medical school. And that end point was constantly on my mind. And so I did not look to the left or to the right. And that is why it is so important to have a destination in mind, because that keeps you anchored. If there's no destination, the difficulties are going to be such that at some point you are going to decide that, look, I think I've had enough. But for me, the destination was to become a medical doctor. And so no matter the obstacle that I faced, I knew that no, I have not arrived.
You've not arrived.
I need to find a way to go around it, or to go above it, or to go under it. And I did not stop at anything. The grace of God was just so abundant. And anytime I got to that place where it looked like I had gotten to the bank of the river of despair, God would send a solution or an angel, or there was always somebody or something to help me get across.
Wow.
Always.
We thank God. We really, really thank God for your life. And so tell us about your faith. You've talked about God. Do you have any favorite verses? And how first of all, how did you give your life to Christ? What role has God, because Akoma morning reflection really has to do with the role God is playing in keeping us on task, vision, etc. How did you give your life to Christ, and what role has being a Christian played in your life?
Yes, so I think when I was in JHS, I probably must have been around 11 or 12 years old. Bethel Faith Missions, a church I mentioned earlier, they came to my area for a crusade, and I was the only soul that got saved and stayed in that church after that crusade. And so that was where I started my young Christian journey. And coming from the background I had come from, I came from a place, I don't know whether it was perceived or real, but I felt that there was no love around me. I felt I did not matter. I was not loved enough. I was not significant. And that kind of consumed me. But when I started delving into the Word of God and hearing the things that God had to say to me, I took every verse in the Bible very personal. Every word I read from the Bible. I saw it as God talking to me,
Acceptance.
and that became my anchor.
Oh my
Like,
God.
that was what anchored me, because when I look around me, there was really nothing to anchor my faith, or there was nothing. My family was there, but they were just not there.
Right. So for you, the verse that says that being rooted and grounded in Christ, that you may know was the exceeding greatness of this, the love of God. Be rooted in the love of God. For you, that became a personal.
It became real and personal to me, and I ate God's word like it was food. And some of the verses of assurance, for I knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb, and your
Jeremiah
words
1.
are continuously before me. Like, I have engraved you on the palms of my
Oh my
hand.
God.
And I read those words of assurance, and it gave me so much hope that the God who created this universe thinks that much of me. And if he thinks that much of me, it does not matter who or what his creation thinks I am.
Right.
And all that mattered was what God was telling me in his word. And it drowned out every other voice.
Amen. That's powerful.
Yeah.
That's really powerful.
Yes.
And as we go and talk about your challenges, you needed to use those scriptures to
Constantly, every day.
Life, I notice, no matter how good your life is gonna test you and shake. And I think that's what Jesus was talking about when he said that he who hears these words of mine and does them is like the man who planted his house and built it upon a rock. He said the rains came, the storms came, but that house stood firm. But he who hears these words of mine and doesn't do them is like the one who built his house anyway. Because when the storms come, it will fall. Because no matter who you are, some things will test your faith. Sometimes you feel like you're confused, you don't know what's going on with your life. But if you've rooted and grounded yourself in God's love, all the storm will settle. You look around and you find that, gee, I'm still here. I'm still pressing on. So that's a very, a very important part of, how your faith has helped to shape you. So that's really good. And so talking about what you're doing now, I mean, you are an entrepreneur. You talked about being hungry and going without food. As we speak, I know there are many children in Ghana and around the world who are hungry. They're not sure where their next meal is coming from. What do you want to tell somebody like that in terms of vision, believing, because you've lived it?
That's right. So there are a few things to note. Everybody needs to have a dream. There must be something you are living for. And if you have what you are living for and the why is strong enough, the how is not difficult.
The how is not difficult. Okay.
The why, the reason, your purpose for living, it should be that strong. And when it is, it doesn't matter the opposition. One of the things I realized in life is that our essence is really to solve problems. It doesn't matter the magnitude of the problem. In order to be of essence to the world, you must solve a problem. And so, take for example, a young boy or girl who does not know where their next meal is going to come from. I think it will be very hard for anybody to see a young boy or girl like that probably walk into your compound or walk into your shop and then take a broom and start to sweep your shop for you. It will be very hard to watch that person go hungry. And so I have come to understand this, and I think that actually for every struggling young man or woman out there, you don't need to go hungry. Find a problem, even if nobody has decided to pay you. Find a problem and be a solution. Crack, 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 crack. You can use your hand. Service.
Yeah.
I have been a house help before. I have served in places where I thought nobody was watching. I mentioned a few minutes ago that when I was going to go to school, people gave me money. It was because I would go to church and I would serve everybody and anybody.
Wow, you have a good heart.
And so when the time came to go, they didn't know the struggles at home. That they felt that, oh, Abaria we were born a home.
Oh.
And so wherever you are, find the problem and be that solution, even if people have not decided to give. Just because of the solution you are providing, people will give.
Right. And you know, it's interesting you say that. In our environment, I always say, like, when they say there's unemployment, I'm like, how can there be unemployment with so many problems? Like, and you know, it's funny, Bill Clinton always says this, that people have become wealthy just by solving problems. There's so much trash, there's transportation issues, people need education, there's a lot of houses that need to be built. We're importing 95% of our poultry. There's not enough food, and yet there's plenty of land. I mean, there's so many things that need to be fixed in this country that it's unimaginable that people wake up and say, we don't have work to do. Go and solve one of the many problems. Like, you decided to solve the radiology problem in Kaswa, and today look at you. So people really don't have excuses when they say, I can't find stuff to do.
I think that one of our biggest problems as human beings is the fact that we think too much of what other people think about us.
Yeah, if you can break that.
Yes, if you can go past that bottleneck, the things you can do in life, they are unimaginable.
Unimaginable.
Because if you can decide that, okay, today I don't have what to eat, I'm going to go to Kaswa Old Market, I'm going to buy a broom and I'll sweep. Do you know how people would dash you money by the close of day? But how many people would have that humility to want to go that low? We think too highly of ourselves sometimes, and we think too much of what other people think about us.
Wow, you hit a very, very important point, meaning if you could just shed the expectations. And you know, the funny thing is, most of the time, people are not really thinking about you anyway.
But even if they are, who cares?
But people walk around thinking, oh, if I do this, what would they say? I'm this big engineer. How am I going to sweep this floor? How am I going to be teaching kids? Like, I'm doing something on writing languages for
kids languages.
And I know some people look at me and think, this woman, is she okay? She's a doctor. What is she doing?
That's right.
But, you know, I really don't. I had an experience in Miraculous where I went to teach my national service. I was going to teach science. I got into the classroom to teach them liquid solid gases. The kids couldn't read. So we did English for my whole national service. So it stayed with me. So it's something that means a lot to me. So I really don't care what people think. I'm going to kind of work on it anyway. So like you're saying, if you can identify something and you're not afraid of what people will think, the minute you shed that facade of what people are going to say and you say, I don't care, I think
you become limitless.
You become limitless. Yeah. And then talking about ideas and solving problems, I always give the example of Facebook, right? Mark Zuckerberg. He went to college, Harvard. People are not connecting. People don't have friends. Well, I know a little bit of IT. Let me create a software that will allow people to see each other's faces.
Yeah.
And now billions of people are on Facebook. He was just trying to solve a problem. So it's all about
finding a problem and providing a
solution. That's amazing. So you and I have something else in common. You shared the story about being handpicked out of 17 people to go and do your exchange program, right? And I also shared with you how I finished medical school and the Medical Women's Association. They wanted one junior doctor. They did lots and my name was picked. So tell us about that. I mean, I won't share my story because you are the spotlight for the day, but tell us, because you know, all those things, it tells you you're the apple of God's eye. He handpicked you out of all these people. You were the one. So tell us about that story so somebody would know that God is thinking about them too.
Indeed, even before we get to the 1 out of 17, before you came, I was sharing with the crew. When I was in med school, helping my mother to sell Kenkey at the medical student hostel, you know, you have this exchange program you do at the end of city. I don't know whether it was the same with your time. And so everybody was looking forward to it. And they had like 20 slots. if you don't get a slot, you'd have to go and find your own school and then pay your fees and blah, blah, blah. And so when the time to share the slots came, there were about 140 of us. And we had to ballot. And I balloted and I got it.
So my goodness, you got one of the 20 slots?
You wait and see. I got one of the 20 slots. Then a month later, they said, okay, there are 5 extra slots from the US. And so we are going to ballot again. And we balloted and I got that one as well.
My goodness.
And then a few weeks before we left for the exchange program, they were like, we have a couple of $500 we want to distribute. So we'll ballot. And then we balloted and I got the $500 again.
My God, you are one blessed and one lucky one.
I think
like
that,
God has been
God just
not day. I got your back. I got your back.
And when I got the slot initially, I was like, so where am I going to get the money to pay for my ticket? By the time I was the vice president of the University of Ghana Medical Students Association, we had done medical outreaches for a few corporate bodies. So one of them just called Voltic Ghana and they were like, come. And I went and
you didn't go to them.
I sent them a letter.
Okay.
So they called and they were like, come see us. And I went and they gave me a check for the full cost of my trip.
Which was how much?
It was then 25 point something million before the redenomination of the city. Wow. But that was more than enough to take care of.
Give God a standing ovation.
Oh,
right?
yes. Just that's why I like that song. Because the things that God has done for me, just say, it cannot be by chance. It cannot be random. That a Kenkey seller's daughter who thought she would not be able to go for exchange because her mother sold Kenkey. I not only got one slot, I got 2. I got $500. I got 25 million at the time. And I did 2 exchange programs.
For like God, it's called, he's able to do exceedingly
abundantly above and beyond what you can ever think or imagine.
You know, and maybe this message is for somebody who needs to do student leadership. You know, you go to school, like in spite of your mother selling Kenkey and all, you find time to be vice president of the Medical Students Association. When I was in school to university, I was also secretary of
CMF, Christian Medical
Fellowship. So Dr. Ablo and his team from Mana Mission are coming to do this CME program. And I'm in there, we're organizing. I also didn't have an exchange program. At the end, they asked me, young lady, what do you want us to do for you? You've been so helpful. I said, well, I don't have an exchange program. And Dr. Danek goes, you know what? We'll go to the US. Next week, we're sending you a letter. Come and do an elective exchange program in Oklahoma. That was just it.
So you see, service.
No, service.
It opens doors.
Do things that nobody's going to pay you for. And then it would open doors that, you know.
It does.
It just, and that was my ticket to United States, and it's been US for me ever since. It's like those days to when you get the US visa, that was it. The next time
it's very easy. Yes. Yeah, it's still like that. Yeah.
It opens so many doors. Anyway, so you finish medical school, you get married, and then you are pregnant and you are tired. Tell us about, like, of all the women who will get tuberculosis in pregnancy, not they got it. Tell us about that one.
I tell you, sister. Until I was newly married, pregnant, started house job, looking forward to starting a beautiful life. And then a few weeks into the pregnancy, I got what we normally call hyperemesis. I'm vomiting a lot. I'm not able to eat. And my OBGYN was like, oh, it's normal. That is how pregnancy is. And I kept telling them that, no, this is very extreme.
It was Professor Dano.
Right? Yes, Professor. Then he was Dr. Dano. He was the one taking care of me. And I was like, Prof, I feel tired. I can't even walk from my bed to the bathroom. I think there's something wrong with me. And he was like, oh, it's just your first time. So let's watch it a bit. And then a few weeks later, I started to cough. And I was put on 2 different courses of antibiotics. It still did not get better. So finally, he listened to my chest and said, no, I need you to go and see Prof. Latte. She needs to take a look at you. So I went. And she listened to my chest and she was like, I need you to go and do TB test.
Oh, my.
And honestly, at the time, I didn't think I had TB. But I said, okay, I would. So I did the 3 sputum dawn for 3 mornings. And the night before I went for my report, I coughed so much. And as I sat on the bed, it just dawned
You
on
just
me.
knew that you knew that you
No,
knew.
I think I have TB.
All those patients who you got exposed to.
Yeah, because I was working in a
there's no
pediatric ward.
isolation,
Yes.
all that.
I just felt it. And I remember telling my husband then that I think I have TB. And he was like, that's such an outrageous thing to think.
Diagnosis.
And I'm like, no, I feel strongly that I have TB. And so that the next morning when we walked into the chest clinic, they gave us a chair and the man came to sit there. He had prepared a nice speech. He started the speech, and then about 2 minutes into the speech, I was like, do you know what? I know what is in my report, so give it to me. I just need my report so that I can go. And so he handed it to me, and I looked on the sheet. And for each of the sputum, I had 3 giant red pluses.
You were full of the bug.
And I had lost like 10 kilos.
Oh, that's like 20 pounds.
Yes, I lost 10 kilos. I was 18 weeks pregnant at the time. And so I went back to Prof. Margaret Latte, and she referred me to another physician, a chest physician too. I remember sitting there with her and my ex-husband, and she was like, this infection is very severe, and you've lost so much weight, you are not in good health. So I would advise that you terminate this pregnancy, have the TB medication, get well, then you can try for another pregnancy. And when she said that, it didn't even register in my brain. By the time she finished talking, I had a response for her, and I said, I've only been married a few months, but the kind of struggle I've been through in this short marriage, if this baby is all I'm going to get out of it, I'm going to keep her. And when I said that to her, she did not say anything. She just wrote a referral for me to go to the chest clinic and start my treatment. And every day when I took my medications, I would pray to God and ask Him, God, protect my daughter, keep her safe, make her develop normally. And today she's thriving, she's beautiful, she's amazing. And I thank God for giving me faith then to keep her, to believe that He was going to keep her safe. And I'm grateful that I kept her.
Oh, that's amazing. And you mentioned that she's graduating with top honors from
yes, she did amazing in her O-levels, and so they are honoring her this Saturday.
You're her mother. And you mentioned in your this book, we haven't delved into it, so African Women Who Inspire, you have a chapter in there, and you talk about how you were doing the science and math quiz. The young ones, you are the one doing the science and math quiz. You were there before. You took your school to the quarterfinals for the first time.
Yes.
You were winning all these awards at WAIC. In fact, we didn't even go into it. The woman who said she didn't want you to play with her daughter because that you are Kenkey Seller's daughter, and she works at WAIC. Only to go and see your results and go, whoa! This Kenkey Seller's daughter is really smart. So you've had a lot of academic...
That experience was one of the turning points in my life.
The way the woman treated you?
Yes, because that etched firmly in my young brains then that it did not matter what people think of you. Because that family had written me off as a Kenkey Seller's daughter and made me believe that once I was a Kenkey Seller's daughter, there was nothing good to expect from me, and even banned their daughter from being friends with me. And so when the results came and I had done so well and they were so shocked, then I knew that for the rest of my life, what other people thought of me would not matter as much as what I thought of me and what God thought of me.
Yeah, but that's so humiliating to have her tell. Anyway, they did it to Martin Luther King too. I mean, somebody told them that they shouldn't play with him anymore as a child. But I think if you're parents listening to this, don't be... I mean, you don't want your kids in bad company, but if your child is playing with somebody who is not a bad child, maybe they're just poor. So, I mean, I had an experience too. I had a mother. There was a family friend who was a guy who was sort of interested in me, or maybe just friends. His mother looked me in the eye and said, you know, I don't want you near my son. You are the daughter of a driver. I hope you're not having any plans to date my son. And I was like, wow. I didn't have a response. I just kept quiet, and many years down the road, the tables turned. I was no more a driver's daughter. I was this, I don't want to say successful, but I was doing okay as a medical doctor. I don't know if I never brought it up. I don't know if she remembers those words, but yeah, people can look down on you when you are young and they can't see. They said man looks on the outside, but God looks at the heart. I wish more people would look at people's hearts instead of just looking on the outside and judging them. But sorry about that painful experience.
It's these experiences have shaped who I have become, and so I walk through life and see everybody as somebody who could be anything and anybody.
Right.
And I really thank God for the experiences I've been through because they have made me more compassionate, they have made me more tolerant, they have made me more patient.
Mm-hmm.
And for every scar that I have gathered on my journey, it has made me this amazing human being. I'm still on my way to becoming, but every day I'm a better, more beautiful version of
I think
the Rosie that I was. And I just thank God for grace to be able to have gathered all these lessons in one lifetime.
My goodness.
The Bible says that the race is not to the swift, neither is the battle to the strong.
Right.
You see, time and chance, it happens to all of us.
Yeah. And Pastor Otabo preached a message on time and chance. I've never forgotten. He talked about ships at the port, and when it's time, you just, like, when your Kairos moment comes, don't miss it. Everybody will have a time. Time and chance happens to them all. So we just need to be sensitive to the Holy Spirit. And it's amazing. Anyway, I want you to talk about your ministry to the children, and we'll just touch briefly about your marriage. And then I also want you to address female physicians, because I was talking to somebody today who was being very judgmental, and this woman didn't do this enough and that enough. And I told him to pause. I said, do you realize she's a woman? She's not a male. Like my male colleagues, they go home, they go to work. They don't have to think of what the family is going to eat. They come home, food is prepared, they eat, sleep, read, write journals, whatever. If you're a woman, you have to think of what your family is going to eat, what your husband thinks, you're managing the house, plus being a doctor. And sometimes, in spite of all that, people will say you are not enough. Meanwhile, you know that, look at you, look at what you've been through to become an MD, a doctor. It's a lot. Considering, not even the average Ghanaian woman, but you've achieved. Now you have children, but in spite of that, sometimes society will say you're still not me. So talk to the young female physicians out there and put it in perspective of your marriage. You were married for the first time for what, 11, 12 years?
13 years.
13 years. And you did everything. It was to another medical doctor, right?
Yes.
And you did everything to save the marriage. And at some point, just disrespect, devaluation, you just felt you had to make a decision and get a divorce. So talk to some young woman about all that and just your perspective. Like, I've put a lot in that question.
I'm trying to remember the first part of it.
Young female professionals, how to balance this whole act and still maintain your sanity, still be able to perform like the men are doing, and also marriage, how it impacted you, and just advice. Like, you had to make a tough decision, which is not simple for a Christian.
Yes, it's not. So I'll start off with a story. When I started my specialty training, it was exactly 2 weeks after I'd had my second child. And so I walked into the department and I told my head of department that, you know what, I've just had a baby. I'm on maternity leave, so I'm going to resume in 3 months. And then he looked at me and said that if you take this maternity leave, at the end of your first year, when your mates are writing their end of first year exam, you are not going to write.
Oh, wow.
You are going to wait for another 6 months before you write your exam. And being the Rosie that I was, I didn't want to fall behind. I was shocked actually that
there was open their mouth and
no, that was what it was. Even now, the debate is still on. you get punished for being a female and for having a baby when you are
And
training.
you know, in the US, you know who changed that? I forget her. She died, Justice Ginsburg or something. I forget.
We need
She's
one
one
of those
short,
here.
petite woman who faced. She finished Harvard Law School and she just wasn't getting a job. So guess what? She said, you know what? I'm going to change this. And she alone, she changed so many things that have to do with women and getting jobs, women and getting post maternity pay, all that. She came and changed one short, petite woman.
We need more of her here in our side of the world. And so when my HOD said that to me, then I didn't know as much today as I knew then. So with the information I had at the time, I was cowered into accepting to go to school and leaving my 2-week-old baby at home. And so I went to start the residency, but by the end of the first week, my feet were swollen, my baby was suffering, and I was just miserable. And so I sat down and I'm like, no, I'm not being fair to me. I'm not being fair to my child. I'm not going to go back there. I'm going to have my maternity leave. And at the end, I'll go back to school.
But here, maternity leave is 6 months, right?
3 months.
3 months.
3
but
months.
It's so in the grand scheme of things, it's good compared to international.
Yes.
3 months of paid.
Yes, of paid.
Most places is like 6 weeks or something.
Well, here it's 3 months. So I was home for 3 months, and when I resumed, I worked hard. That's the thing. You see, society is not kind to women generally. It's a man's world. And so for us as women, all the time you need to prove yourself. So when I went back to school, I worked extra hard. And so at the end of the first year, when we were going to write the end of first year exam, that topic about so you were home for 3 months until you won't draw exams, no, it never came up.
You just applied yourself.
Yes.
Hammer.
Yes.
I'm here.
So the point is that for women who are seeking equity in the workspace, you can get to go home for all the physiological reasons. But when you come to work, come to work. Because I've worked with women, I've seen women, I'm a woman myself, but I've seen women who every week want to take an excuse duty because I have a child who is sick and I need to close early because I have to pick my children. I'm not saying that there are not roles that we should play as women, but if we want to be career women, I know people will bite my neck for this, but the world is not fair and we have been created as women. If you want to really be a career woman, you need to spend a bit of the money you are making to pay other people to do some of these things for you.
Clean,
yes, cook, pick your kids. When you have the time, you take them to school.
It doesn't make you less of a woman.
It does not. When I get the chance to, I take my kids to school. But on days that I don't take them to school, they know that mommy needs to be at work really early today. And so they don't hold a grudge against me. It is not really about how much time we spend with our kids or family, but the depth when we are with them.
Yes, really
yes. And so I really need for women out there listening to me to understand it is not fair, and we cannot change some of these things overnight. But the little we can do, so that for me, when I'm hiring women, sometimes I'm a woman, but sometimes I'm skeptical because some women make hiring them difficult. That is the truth of the matter. And so we as women need to do a little better. Not all of us, but some of us need to do a little better than we are doing so that we can play on that field of career.
And tell us about your marriage. As much as you're willing to share, no pressure. Your first one.
Yes, so marriage is a beautiful thing, and
you went into it excited.
All the reasons that I would go into a marriage for, but it took me a long time to realize that sometimes marriage does not serve the purpose that God intended it to serve. But because we don't know any better or do not understand our value, we stay in it, and society does that to us, I think. For me, I realized a very long time ago that I'm not getting what I need to get out of
You're not being nourished. Like
not
it's
being
not.
nourished.
It's not.
I'm just giving and giving
Giving.
and withering and slowly dying. But then everybody around you feels like, oh, our dear son, and God hates divorce. And there are so many theories that we
Somebody said the Ghanaian women are used to suffering, quote unquote.
No, God did not create us to suffer.
Right.
And recently I was just doing a podcast and I quoted this verse in scripture that Jesus used, that the thief comes not but to steal, to kill, and to destroy. And as Christians, we have decided that the thief is the devil. But when God talked about the thief, he came to steal, to kill, and to destroy. So guess what? Some people are in marriages that are thieves. Because the marriage is stealing from you, it is killing you, and it is destroying you. Okay. And I need women and men, because it is not only women who are suffering. It's stealing and killing and destroying. It is a thief. It's not just the devil. And we are in church and we are basically praying against the devil when the thieves are the institutions that we are in. Do you understand? Right. And God wants us to have life.
Are you supposed to bind the devil in that situation, or what are you supposed to do?
When you catch hell, don't hold it. And when you are going through hell, don't stop. Run as fast as you can. Because the covenant of life is above every other covenant. And it is not just about being alive, but having abundant life. I want to be able to laugh and to be at ease with the world. And if I'm in a marriage that stifles me, I should show you my picture 10 years ago. I looked like I was 50 then.
Like the marriage was
it was bad. And when I finally walked out of that abusive relationship, I knew that society had shortchanged us into thinking that marriage should be for better. It's
like a badge. It's like you have to put on that badge.
Marriage is beautiful, but only when you are getting back as much as you are putting in. The barest minimum is to be married to somebody who loves you. And love is non-negotiable. When people love, there's just a way they will do things for you or treat you.
Yeah. You don't have to work hard. You don't have to feel like you have to earn it.
But and love does not have a price tag on it.
Right.
It does not. Right. So if there's no love there, I think that it is time to.
It's time to, before you die. And there are many women who died, literally. Akoma, the one who sang.
Yes, I know a lot of women who have died, and I'm sure if I had stayed, I would have died. And I thank God so much that I got that courage to leave. And I thank God even more that I still believe in marriage. And when I talk to people, I don't tell them go and leave your husband or go and leave your wife. I tell them to do everything they can to save it. But after you have done everything,
even the whole concept of saving, I always say that people will say emotional abuse, financial abuse, whatever. At the end of the day, the root of abuse is somebody who has stopped loving you. You can call it the person did this because it will come in various forms. The bottom line is the person has stopped loving you, so they don't mind hurting you and inflicting emotional pain, financial pain, and they don't care. They've just gone into that stage. So when love goes out, then it looks like emotional abuse. And then you have to make up your mind whether you're going to die or realize that, like you said, you came onto this earth with a purpose. You had passion. See, before you got married, you were Nadede who was out there going to be the best version of herself, and you can reclaim that back. So you tried getting married again. Tell us what happened with that one.
Yes, and so second marriages are not prone to the problems of every other marriage. But for me, I think that this second marriage was basically an illusion, and I managed to have found myself in the presence of a well-practiced, I don't know what word to call it, but there are people who have just mastered the art of deception. And I think so much already, but I'm surprised that it took me a little bit longer to figure things out. But looking back, I think as painful as it is to realize that somebody tried to deceive you to the point of marriage, I have learned so many valuable lessons in that short time. I've actually grown, become wiser, better, stronger, and I have enough knowledge and exposure in my toolbox to be able to help more women to scale some of the walls that I have been able to scale. And so for me, everything that has happened to me up until now, even with the second marriage and the outrageous amount of deception that it came with, I'm all the wiser, and I think I'm better equipped to handle life and the purpose that God has given me. And I have never been happier, I have never been more fulfilled, and I've never been more optimistic as I look forward to all the amazing things that are yet to unfold, not just for me, but for the many people that God is going to use my life to touch.
And talking about many people, before your second marriage, like in 2024, you had this school ministry. You can tell us about Run Foundation, your school ministry. You went to over 15 schools. Each school has about 500 children. So, like per my calculation, you've impacted over 10,000 young people with your ministry. And not only that, the people who watch you on YouTube too, you can count. So you're impacting thousands of lives because you're grounded back into who you are. Like after your first marriage, you started doing. So tell us about that one and how. Talk to a woman out there who, as a woman, it's easy. Paul talked about if you get married, you feel like you have to please your husband. Like there's a lot of women out there whose whole image of themselves is how their husband sees them. If their husband says they're good, they're good. If they're bad, they go around thinking, oh, I'm so terrible. And no matter how people tell them you're amazing, they can't see themselves any other than what this individual, this one human being is defining them to be. So can you speak to some women, somebody listening, about rediscovering who they are, learning to be themselves, whether they're single, married, divorced, or, whatever they, like getting to the root of why you're on this earth, not just to be somebody's wife, but to be who God called you to be.
Exactly. So a couple of weeks ago, I was doing a podcast. I was teaching. I don't even remember what I was teaching about, but in the middle of the podcast, then it hit me. And I said, a couple of years ago, all I dreamt about and prayed for and hoped for was to be a wife and a mother and a good doctor. And at that time, that was my biggest ambition. And if I could get that, then my life was not complete. But as I sat there in front of the camera, teaching people about the things I've been through in life, then I realized that so my purpose is bigger than being somebody's wife and being a mother to my 3 children. And that is a point we all need to get to, where we understand that our purpose is rooted first of all in God. Because it's God who created us. He knew us before I formed thee. I knew thee. You see, He knows why He brought us here. He knows what we are capable of. Marriage is good. It is part of our journey, but it does not define us. God first. You see, the way the relationship is, God is the ultimate. And then relationship with other human beings follows. When we reverse that order and we make the relationship with any human being, be it your spouse, your mother, any kind of human being at all, count before God, you have turned the pyramid upside down. And that is a recipe for disaster. And so we need to first of all anchor who we are, who we want to be, and where we are going on God. And then these other relationships come in to support us. Because once you focus on man will disappoint you. You can have a woman who thinks the world of you today, tomorrow her mind has changed completely. And where does that leave you? And that is why it is important that we anchor everything concerning us first on the unchangeable God. Because you can trust that no matter who leaves you, God does not change. And there was a time in my life where I lost almost every relationship imaginable. And God was there for me. And because God was there for me, I did not lose my mind. If I did not have that order right, I'm sure I would not be here today.
So talk to a woman who seems to have lost, maybe she was grounded in Christ before, but now she's lost her focus. She's lost who she is. She's just struggling to discover purpose, direction.
Go back to the cross. Go back to God in the place of prayer. As you carry your burdens to God, as you commune with Him daily, He has a way of refocusing you back to Himself and back to the reason why He brought you here in the first place. And for some people, as you find your way back to the God who is your ultimate lover, there are times when the byproduct of that change is that the relationships around you also improve. There are times when they do not improve and you have to let them go and hold on to that one that does not change. And as you hold on to that one that does not change, God is a creator, and He can replace everything you have lost. And I like this song. I've forgotten who sang it, but I'll say, Nyami bibi free or not there the papa bi ashewama. And that is my absolute confidence. Anything we lose, we don't lose it. But it is because God has a better option for us. But because we are human beings and in this realm, we only see the physical, it is very hard for us to see what is not visible. Recently I was reading a book and it said something profound. I've kept it. It says that what we do not see is more than what we see.
But Elijah said it, right? Elijah told his servant that if I could open your eyes to see the people that are for us, you'll be amazed. And he opened his eyes and he saw this great army with chariots of fire.
And that is why when we go through difficulties, it is so hard. Because the things that we cannot see, they are so much more than what we see.
The fact that He's always with us, His presence. You have an angel watching over you 24/7.
We only see the little suffering. We don't see all the things that God is working in the background and putting in place for us. Sometimes when you are lucky, every once in a while, God breaks through the realms and shows
you a little bit.
So that you have that. Recently I was sleeping and then it was like a trance. I saw a man standing by my bed wearing full soldier regalia. He was just standing there at attention watching me as I sleep. And when I woke up, I was so reassured of God's presence in my life. And everything that I was going through, just like the sea just became calm because I got that confidence that God is watching over me. And so if we can anchor our faith back on God, that He has got us, it does not matter the kind of storm that is raging around us. You can be sure that He's got you. And so for everyone who has lost herself, whether through marriage or any kind of difficult situation, I pray that you find yourself back to God and the love of God that is complete and whole, and that makes you know that you are enough, who you are, where you are, with all your limitations, with all your scars. You are enough.
You are enough. And you are enough. And when you find that purpose and you are in yourself, like for you, God is going to bring somebody your way. This person is just going to love you for you. It's not about, because I think you're a multi-millionaire, by the way.
I receive it.
Yes, you are.
I'll work towards it.
Yeah, you are. I mean, you are. You are. And that person is not going to love you because Nadede is a multi-millionaire, award-winning doctor. Just going to love you for you. And you realize you don't have to work. You don't have to work hard to win the person's, it's just the person likes you, and the things that they're going to do for you and with you, they just want to see you happy. And I think you will it's you got two down, but the next one is going to be good. You will just find that you will just feel loved. You will just know that you know that this is the one, and you found them.
I'll take that as a prophecy.
It's a prophecy. I wish. No, I think you're gonna call me one day and say, Bertha, I found this amazing human being, and it's just what the doctor orders. Just what he said. So we're getting to the end of this amazing time. I'm so proud of you. You took a bold step to start a business as a medical practitioner, and it has worked. And I think the sky is the limit. I don't want to speak for you, but I quickly see Rand getting into Kumasi, Sunyani, Tamale, because your services are very, very vital and around Africa, and you might even have a branch in Europe. I don't mean to speak for you, but tell us, what's in your future? What do you see Rand becoming, and what is Nade Day becoming? I know you have to write a book. Like, you can't have all this.
Yes, I'm working.
You have to write books.
Yes, I'm working on a couple of books
for the young girls to know that there once upon a time there was this Ganyobi natural and a poor coming. Ka flata never pay doctor and go
Yes, and so although Rand started here in Kaswa, I have come to the realization that what we do is something that is needed all over Ghana, all over Africa, and of course all over the world. And so every day we show up, we do our best, and we trust God that we'll keep expanding and touching more lives, impacting more lives. What we do is not just a business, it is a ministry. And once we have God in it and we continue working hard, I know that the sky is our limit, and there's no telling what God can do. I think I would sum up and say that, like the Bible says, that eye has not seen, neither has.
That's one of my favorite verses.
Nor has it entered
into the heart of any man. The things that God has prepared for those who love Him. My goodness. So even your imagination is not even enough.
Oh yes, it is not enough. Where my imagination ends, that is where God starts. And so we'll put our hand in God's hands, and then we trust Him to take us where He alone knows. And when that time comes, we'll all see it, and the glory will reflect back to God.
Amen. Amen. So on this note, it's been an extreme delight meeting you. And just for the record, Ida Vanderpoy, your colleague, she reached out to me and said, you're profiling all these people. There's one young lady you really need to talk to. She has quite a story because she was my classmate. So there we are. We had lunch. I read your book, and we're here today. So I think my life is better because I met you, and I hope we have a long-lasting friendship. Just cheering each other on, and thank you for doing me the honors of, giving me so much of your time.
Thank you for
honoring me with your presence. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
All right, and to the crew, thank you for your patience sitting here all day so we can get this done. We appreciate you too.